Meet Dave of Delusions of Grandeur, actor, producer, and director of films like Tales of the Forgotten. He has come to assemble a team of freaks, geeks, and even worse, film nerds, to discuss films ranging from mainstream to downright crazy. There is Tammy car enthusiast and Dave's fiance, Dustin reptile expert and overall horror collector, Jake environmentalist and fine art film critic, and finally Brandon, a therapist with a love of film that can only be seen as insanity. Together under Dave's leadership, they are inside movies galore. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the show.
To heal.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight, I guess I am hosting because this is another one of my birthday picks, and it's one of the weirdest. But it is also from 1968, and it is about, well, technically it involves the Beatles. Somewhat. Okay. Only in the ending. But it is directed by George Dunning, with art direction and style by Heinz Eidelman, and I know that there were a lot of artists that went in and evolved behind the Heinz Eidelman name, but I won't be able to call attention to all of them. But Heinz Eidelman was a Czech German who pretty much composed many of the well, let's see. Let's see. Okay. And one of the things, and one of the reasons why I said that the Beatles were only in the end, is because the Beatles' voices for this animation were entirely done by voice actors, which is insane. John Clive voiced John Lennon. Jeffrey Hughes voiced Paul McCartney, which, to me, Paul McCartney, the way he looked, kind of reminded me of Lupin the Third.
Huh.
Peter Batten played George Harrison up until he was arrested, because apparently he was found to be a deserter from the British Army of the Rhine in West Germany, and he was arrested. So
Right.
so about half of the film, he played George Harrison, and then Paul Angelus, who also played the opening narrator, the Chief Blumini, Ringo Starr, played the rest of the George Harrison character. And then Dick Emery played Max, the Lord Mayor, and Jeremy Hillary Boob, PhD. And then Lance Percival voiced young and old Fred. So that about covers most of the voice actors or whatnot. So let's go into seeing what IMDb says about the Yellow Submarine, and then we'll go into first impressions here. Yellow Submarine. Okay. And so it says the Beatles agreed to accompany Captain Fred in his yellow submarine and go to Pepperland to free it from the music-hating Blue Meanies. Lee Minoff was one of the writers, but John Lennon and Paul McCartney are also, of
I'm
course,
guessing they're
writers.
credited more for the music than anything.
Yeah, much of it is written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Oh, and there are two songs that were used in the Beatles animation series that was done before before this feature even existed, because they were part of a somewhat animation series,
Right.
which didn't last long, but there were two songs that were used in this feature that were used in that, and that would be Nowhere Man and Eleanor Rigby.
Those are regular Beatles songs, though. They may have used them for that show, but this one does have original music, though.
But in any case, let's go around. Well, Wikipedia certainly says that it was used previously on the Beatles animated series.
Right.
So
I know Eleanor Rigby was originally debuted on Revolver.
Right. And Nowhere Man was
That was that was
Which one was
Nowhere
that from?
Man's. Nowhere Man was Magical Mystery Tour.
I
Is that
think
right?
I think so.
Because, and if that was the case, then that would have been made for that particular, which also came out, by the way, a similar year.
Mhm.
So I want to say Magical Mystery Tour is also 68, but I could be wrong.
but in any case, let's
67, year before.
Mhm.
let's go into first impressions. And let's start with you, Tammy. Was this the first time watch for you?
No, I know we watched it at least once before.
Hey. But it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And what were your thoughts on it then and now?
Strange. I mean, the anime in it is just really weird. It's out there. I mean, I've never seen anime like that, and the first time I watched it, I don't think I've seen anything like it since. Because, well, number one, I'm not a big connoisseur of it, anyways. You know. So, but yeah. I mean, it was fun. It was strange. I mean, it was strange because of the animation in it. You know,
there was definitely some wild stuff going on in it.
Oh yeah. So, you know, we looked briefly at a brief little behind the scenes, and they were talking about things about making it, and you know, where they got ideas and things like that and everything. It's just it's definitely unique. I mean, it definitely had a lot of imagination in it as far as all the different, I don't know, what do you want to call them? Creatures or things or
It's definitely characteristic of British animation around the time. That is for sure.
But there was just so many different weird looking things in the whole thing, and totally off the wall looking creatures, and things that they did and things, and things sucking, the one that was sucking like everything up, and then the ones that you know kind of like a snapping turtle, just snap, snap, and it was just. Like I said, never saw anything that looked like these things or creatures or whatever in here.
It all definitely was. It's a very although some of it reminded me of like some of the animation that you might see in like Monty Python's Flying Circus. But but I know that that the dude didn't do animation for that series at all.
I know I really liked the sub. I thought the sub was cool. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It was fun to watch. I mean, maybe the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, "What is this?" I think maybe I had a little bit more fun watching it this time than maybe the first time. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I watched it again and everything, and it just don't know really what else to say about it except for that it was wacky and weird and unique and
Okay.
So like the music.
Of course. But heading over you Jake, was this the first time watch for you?
Yeah, this was kind of hate to say it, but this is probably the first time I've watched any of the Beatles movies. What a way to start.
Wow.
It's and it is definitely an interesting movie. It is definitely unusual. Quite acid trip-ish at times. And it is appropriate that one of the songs on the soundtrack is Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Very appropriate. And of course, I've always liked that song a lot. I've always enjoyed Nowhere Man. Eleanor Rigby is one of my favorite Beatles songs. So which places it very high on the running, just for great songs. So there's a lot to be said for the music choices here. Some of the original ones were not quite as classic, although I think All Together Now was original, and it seemed to fit the movie pretty well. The animation is definitely interesting and notable. I feel like given that they made it on some time constraints, they did pretty decent. And I was annoyed at first by this sort of the bait and switch. Like I'd always heard this was a Beatles movie. And I was like, wait a minute, they're not really in it? What? But then I read a little bit on the backstory and and you barely touched on it, but I'm sure you guys saw some of this where like apparently it's the same people who did the animated series, and the Beatles apparently hated the animated series, so they were like, yeah, they kind of held their nose and signed the contract to get out of the movie deal. and then when they saw it, they were like, it's not bad. And that's when they decided to film that scene at the end. So, it's kind of interesting to see that. I can't help but think, Dave, that one reason you like this probably is because of the obvious insult to Disney. where the villains all look like they're dressed as musketeers.
Ah,
But supposedly, I think I read this. You probably saw this. That apparently, Heinz Edelman, I think, was the one I read that he absolutely hated Disney, and he threw that in because of that. But I don't know. I thought that was something I was like, at the very least, Dave would appreciate that. I'll admit, overall, I found it mostly entertaining. A little, at times, it was a bit too odd to fully bring me in. A lot of the quips and one-liners were just plain silly or forced, but some of them were really good. And I have to admit that Captain Fred gave us an all-time great what's the word I want to say? Expression, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. But we'll go with that. He had one of the all-time great turns of phrase with "By Neptune's Knickerbockers." I was like, I love that. So yeah, overall it was interesting. It was good to finally see it, to get a little bit of more background. Like, I'd always heard about the Blue Meanies, like they I know they were referenced in Across the Universe, and I've heard them talked about in other contexts. So it's kind of nice to finally see that. I don't know. I feel like you and Brandon are in a contest for the strangest films this month, and so far Dave seems to be winning, but but yeah, I did not like this one as much as Hundreds of Beavers, but it was still fun.
Okay. Headed over to you, Brandon. Was
I
this the
definitely like
first
this
time?
one better than the Beavers.
Okay.
Well,
Go ahead, Brandon.
this is definitely my first time watching it. I'd always thought this was one of the Beatles' main movies because it's always put in the same phrase as the other 3, 4 if you count Let It Be, but Let It Be is a documentary, so I really don't consider
But
it.
now finding out that the Beatles only had something to do with the end of it.
I would really say that the Beatles had 3 movies if you really want to go with it, which would be, Hard Day's Night, Help, and Magical Mystery Tour, because those were actual movies. Whereas Let It Be was definitely a documentary. But I have watched all the ones that are associated as the quote-unquote Beatles movies. Though I'd still say that Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is almost as much a Beatles movie as this one is. In a lot of senses. But with that being said, I did like this movie somewhat. It's a very interesting animation. I mean, British animation in general has a very odd flair to it. If you look at a lot of early animation, of course, Monty Python is referenced, and you add into that the psychedelic movement that came into the
Now,
end.
remember, the animated director is Czech and German.
Well, I mean, even then, a lot
He's
of
still working in Britain.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that had some influence on him, the British styles. And then on top of that, you see others that are very similar from similar areas, like, say, Danger Mouse is a good one that reminded me of that, which is very odd combinations, experimental stuff. And as I said, if you add that to the psychedelic movements of the late 60s, And then, of course, it makes sense why the Beatles weren't as directly involved, because the Beatles were actually pretty much at the point of breakup already by 68. They just hadn't quite gotten there yet. I mean, they'd already stopped performing, period. Their manager had died, and that was really the last nail in the coffin for them, to tell the truth. So it was kind of interesting to see them sign on somewhat to this project. But from what I recall, Ringo and George Harrison were the ones who most were interested in this project, with the others just kind of coming along for the ride for what time they spent with it.
Let go.
And for what it was interesting. It had an opening that did get my attention. And the ending was okay. The middle, I kind of zoned out in the middle, because it kind of just meandered a whole bunch. I think this one would have been a good one, much like Hamburger the movie, whereas Hamburger the movie, I think, is a good one to drink with. I think this one would have probably been a good one to be high and watch. I couldn't tell you whether that would be so or not, but that's the way it looks. Probably LSD high-wise, like psychedelics.
Or at least on shrooms.
So,
those psychedelics.
And considering most of the Beatles were experimenting with psychedelics at the time, and probably many people who were involved in this film were probably also experimenting with psychedelics at the time, it makes sense.
Again, no accident they included Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Oh, of course. A lot of the music has been sourced from other projects. I'm not even sure what songs were original for this movie itself, because a lot of it was stuff that had been made prior to, but maybe debuted for this. But there,
I think IMDb said there were 3. And oh man, Spirit is. Hey Bulldog is one of them.
They almost cut that scene from the movie.
Yeah. Hey Bulldog, and All Together Now, I think, and only a Northern song was for the Sgt. Pepper album but wasn't used.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it kind of just got its use there, and then the soundtrack album. But overall, it was a fun movie and enjoyable enough. I probably will sit down and watch it again, just to get it in there. I really need to rewatch the first 2 Beatles movies now that I've watched the technical last 3, if you count this one, and Let It Be in that mix.
What's going,
buddy? But I can definitely say that
No.
it goes well with Magical Mystery Tour, because that one's also a very psychedelic movie. I'd say those 2 could be done back to back and definitely appreciated in the same way.
Okay.
But yeah, otherwise, it was decent, a solid thing. I like weird stuff, and it was definitely weird. I probably needed to do it in the right mindset, and I was definitely not in the right mindset to watch it all and keep my interest the whole way through, but definitely had a strong beginning and ending. So I will give it that.
Okay. And I'm not sure when I initially saw this, but I saw this fairly early on in my lifetime. And as this is a birthday a pick, this is obviously more of a on my list of favorites. Although I got let down by finding out, because I'd never really done research behind it, really until this time around, and finding out that it definitely was not the voices of the Beatles, so that I can't blame them for a bad performance, because literally the voice actors had no oomph, no emphasis, no excitement in their voices. It was all just okay. We're going over here. We're going over here. We're going over here. We're going over here. You know, and just the same monotone, robotic, like voices. And that's my biggest pet peeve about the film because they were definitely not the Beatles, and you could tell that. But the animation design was weird.
It could have. I was going to say it could have been worse because I read that apparently someone in the production thought that it would be unfortunate if they sounded like Liverpudlian. And it's like, well, if they're not Liverpudlian, then they're not the Beatles. What are you talking about?
How dare they sound like they come from where they come from? I mean,
Exactly.
But I love the song choice. It says I love the storyline. Line. I love the fact that it's the Beatles versus the Beatles. Because I don't know. I just get a kick out of the storyline, the antagonists, the song choices. And I'm sure that's why it was such a hit and that it reverberated with others because it was a good storyline. They basically were able to fudge the Beatles enough to for the drug-induced audience to think that this was a great a decent animation. I mean, I was let down specifically because it wasn't the voices of the Beatles. But then again, I remember thinking that there's no excitement in their voices. What the hell? Are we listening to AI?
Yeah, they secretly had AI all the way back in the 60s.
Right? But at least that's what one would think because of the way the voices were. Or at least the voice actors were just as disinterested in doing the animation because the Beatles didn't want anything to do with the project. So then they were like, well, why should I be excited about this project?
Well, yeah, also, in fairness, voice acting has come a long way. And it could be that they just they weren't getting the direction they needed to do proper,
the problem is we're not watching it in the original Japanese.
Oh, man.
Actually,
Yeah, I
There
don't
was
know.
original Japanese.
I'm sure that this was in Japanese at one point.
Well,
Just
I know
because,
the Beatles were big in Japan.
Yes, like I say, I know this thing debuted in Japan, and they've dubbed it into so many other languages. There's no way that they didn't into Japanese at one point. You know that.
They just didn't sub it into this North American copy.
Though Yuki Horie would be a little bit too young to voice all the Beatles in this one.
Who?
Was it Yuki Horie? Am I right getting the name right?
Yui Horie?
Yui Horie, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I don't know. She's in the Forever 17 club, so maybe she is a vampire and has been around for decades.
You never know. Megumi Hayashibara could have been in it.
I don't think she's in the Forever 17 Club. I know Yui Horie and Kikuko Inoue are. I don't remember who else is in it.
Let's see. Actually, yes. Megumi Hashibara could have voiced a part in this, but she'd have had to be the most talented 1-year-old out there to have voiced their roles. So yeah, she could have.
Well, in any case, let's get into the plot.
Plot? Oh yeah. I guess there's one.
Yeah, there's definitely a plot. So there is a make-believe. Well, I would say an imaginary place called Pepperland. Because it's in the world of the imagination. I do believe that's what the narrator projected the Pepperland to be.
It's not imaginary bread.
No, but it is in the world of the imagination.
Okay.
And apparently it's run by several factions, one being a mayor and the other being a band called the Sgt. Pepper Lonely a Hearts Club band, which apparently the music is what keeps people entertained and keeps the world colorful. You know, they're constantly playing, because it seems like the band is playing, but then again, the Lord Mayor has his own quartet that's playing music too. You know, so it definitely seems like the people are very lively in their music.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be. Gotta keep the meanies away.
Which there is a group of protagonists called the Blue Meanies who absolutely can't stand music.
I definitely consider them the protagonists. I agree.
Yes,
And
clearly.
They don't like the word yes. Everything
No, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
No.
Neat.
Everything is no.
Yeah.
They despise the people in Pepperland, so he makes a plan to bump many of the people with these green apples, these large, giant green apples with tall men, or not even sure what the heck those guys are called. But I guess he's got snapping turtles and robotic like clowns and different creatures to help him, and a flying fist of a hand that looks rather mean.
Yeah, that flying fist definitely is right out there with Monty Python. I mean, the way it is.
I would have to say that the animator and the other animators definitely were thinking along the lines of like Monty Python-esque ish humor.
Well, this was at the very beginning of Monty Python's career, so I doubt that they had that in mind. But it could have gone the other way. Monty Python might have been very influenced by this.
Yeah, I could see that too. I mean, like I say, this isn't the only animation coming from the area to have a similarity to it. I mean, shoot, you could even say that if you want to do a Czech connection, that Alice in Wonderland one that they did was has some similar concepts when you go to the stop motion animation style. There's definitely a similar feel, I should say.
Yeah, I would say so. But basically, the Blue Meanies end up attacking the people of Pepperland, and they basically put the Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club band in a bubble, a glass bubble, and they freeze a lot. In fact, everyone except for one particular person, which I guess his name is Fred, and he looks like he's a captain, but he's not been quite named a captain yet. Like he's wearing a captain's uniform, and it's not until he gets to the Lord Mayor, convinces the Lord Mayor that the Blue Meanies are coming after him.
Well, the Lord Mayor doesn't heed his warnings, and he's like you said, he's doing a quartet, and he's like, wait until the quartet is finished or something like that. And then one of them gets bonked, and Fred's like, a trio. And the other one, a duet. The other one is a solo. And it's like when it's only the Lord Mayor left, he's like, oh, the Blue Meanies are coming.
And so Fred carries him to this pyramid, where on top of the pyramid is the yellow submarine, and that's when the Lord Mayor then tells him, "I'm too old, so I'm going to elect you as captain, and send you off." And Fred's like, "Well, where do I go?" And right as he gets in the submarine, and the submarine starts to take off, the mayor mutters something to the effect of going to reality, which to me is going to the real world. So it's like it's like Pepperland is a version of is part of like Fantasia or something, you know.
Or like you mentioned, or I think Brandon mentioned Alice in Wonderland not long ago. This definitely has some similarities with that in some ways. Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess he comes across Ringo in the real world.
So it's sort of the inverse of Alice in Wonderland, because instead of Alice following the White Rabbit, in this one, the yellow submarine is following Ringo.
Yeah. And Ringo stops to talk to a policeman. And
I'll say this: Ringo's voice was done well, because he does remind. I heard that and I thought it was the real Ringo at that point. So that one was a good voice acting.
That policeman was definitely taking his duties seriously.
Gotta catch the cat.
Puss.
If I told you that I was being followed by a yellow submarine, would you believe me? Which is what he told the policeman. He was like, probably not. I didn't think so.
Right.
So he continued on his way, and it was like, it must be in my imagination. And then, of course, he goes inside the house. Fred pops out of the submarine and bangs on the door, and all he can do is just mutter, "Blue Meanies!" And Ringo basically tells him, "Be more specific." And finally, he lets him inside the house. The house has like many fucking doors.
Mm-hmm.
And
reminded me of like the typical Scooby-Doo hallway, but on steroids.
Yeah, basically. Because Fred walks into one of the doors, and then suddenly you see like a Scooby-Doo move. And I'm glad you mentioned Scooby-Doo because I swear to God, that's exactly what this reminds me of. When you see that long hallway, and then a bunch of people just go in and out of doors, and it's just a bunch of weird, strange stuff that follow each other into other doorways.
To Brandon's earlier point, I bet you this would be good to watch on Scooby Snacks.
Yes, probably.
Probably. As long as those Scooby snacks would put me on cloud 9. Yes.
Doobie Snacks.
Doobie Snacks. There we go.
As reference to another movie that we were covering, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Oh yeah.
But in any case, Fred attempts to go into a door and to find Ringo. And Ringo is traveling around in a motor car.
Mm-hmm.
That apparently is his own, and he basically tells him he heard his sob story and he believed him, and let's go find my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes into I believe he goes into a specific door and finds a version of a Frankenstein.
Yes.
Which turns out to be John Lennon.
Well, first he just seemingly randomly, like, oh, it's Frankenstein's monster. We need to go ahead and wake it up because reasons. And then, that's gone.
Which I kind of love this whole introduction piece to all the different Beatles because it kind of pays homage to the classic movies of like King Kong and Frankenstein's monster, and the fact that there was always something that came before. I do get a kick out of this Frankenstein monster moment. Let's just put it that way. Although I'm not so sure that John Lennon should have been the one behind it. Per se, I'm not sure. Not sure how I feel about that. How do you guys feel about it being John Lennon?
It was
Ultimately, yeah, I thought it was interesting too. But anyone else? Okay, so moving forward, I do believe that George Harrison was next.
Yeah, they say something like, they're like, what day is this? And they say whatever day it is. Oh, then he'll be in his room. And they like open it up and you hear the sitar music and all that stuff, little nod to his obsession with mysticism and the Far East,
Yep. Technically, he's meditating on some ultimate horizon or whatnot, but then apparently he jumps into Ringo's car.
Yeah.
And Ringo's like, "Hey, that looks like my car. It is my car. How do you know it's your car?" You know, kind of thing. And
He
then
describes it, and then the car drives back and it's a different color. And then he's like, well, then it's that. And then the car drives back and it's the original color again.
yeah.
Yeah.
So they all pile in, and I do believe that there is a door that they open, and they hear a bunch of cheering, and out pops Paul. Which, if I didn't know it was Paul, I'd think it was like I said. I'm specifically reminded of Lupin the Third. I know it's Paul, but don't get me wrong. But Paul must have been the inspiration for Lupin. Lupin, I swear to God. But in any case, that being said, now the four are together, and they are now is still listening to the Blue Meanies message. So I guess Fred takes them back to the submarine, and this is when they have kind of a little bit of fun, because they end up pressing buttons, and they go back in time, but you get to see them as little rascals. And then, of course, then they realize, okay, if we go too far back, we might disappear.
Right.
So they end up turning around, seeing themselves going back the other way. They wave at each other. Hi! And then they keep on going forward, and that's when we get the song "When I'm 64."
Because they've become old.
I do like the fact that one of the songs, as Fred is coming to the reality world, is the Eleanor Rigby song.
Yes.
Because that is a I would have to say a Great Depression song.
It is one of the great songs, and it is very much a song about about how rough life and all that stuff. And I did like how they had a very drab and subdued animation as they just went through all these scenes of London playing that song. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a good representation of moving to that the real world from this kind of dreamscape reality that we had for, well, Pepperland.
It's like Pepperland was Oz, and all colorful and colors, and all of a sudden it's like a black and white dreary world with like two-dimensional colors,
And it was like, it wasn't even like the Pepperland is clearly animated, like old school hand-drawn animation, but this was more like I guess you could say like silk print, like kind of very minimal animation, not even really all that animated, but still counts because you're not really looking at live action either. But interesting way of doing it. But yeah, a weird, kind of creepy side note though that IMDb pointed out, and I was like, "Holy crap! I think that's right." They, like we said, when they get older, they play "When I'm 64."
Yep.
And apparently, only half of them ever made that number. So
yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Well, George Harrison came close.
He came close. I don't remember how old he was when he passed. Let's see. Hmm.
But yeah,
See, he was. Yeah, he was like 58, if I'm mathing correctly.
So 6 years away.
He came close, but yeah.
I know this was the first time I had actually ever heard When I Was 64.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh well, you said you heard it years. You saw this years ago. Okay.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure how early, but it's been on my memory banks for quite a long time, for 30-some years.
Hmm.
So
yeah, I heard it
I
from
at
the
least saw
original.
it when I was eight or nine.
I want to say When I'm 64 is a Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band song, but I could be wrong.
I've never fully seen Sergeant Pepper.
Oh, I'm talking about the studio album, not the horrible film. Yeah, two different things.
But ultimately, I guess somehow Ringo gets catapulted out of the submarine. He goes riding on some kind of creature for a little bit.
He gets catapulted out because there's sort of a running gag where none of them know what the buttons do, and they keep pushing buttons.
And that means including friends.
it's
And then
funny because they keep pushing buttons and all these weird things keep happening.
Right.
Well, that's the official way to do it, as they say.
But one of them, Fred, actually tells Ringo, "Don't push that button," and he's like, "Why? What? This button?" And he's like, "Yes, don't push that button." Or this button, he pushes it. And it's an eject.
I am Groot. I am Groot.
Well, admittedly, Ringo asked a couple of times to make sure that it was pointed out correctly to him before he did it. So
he wanted to make sure he was pushing the wrong button.
Yeah, he couldn't.
Right.
He didn't want to press the right button by mistake.
Right.
Right. Just like I am Groot. I am Groot. Don't push that button. No, I am Groot.
Yeah.
But I guess for a moment they thought about leaving, but they decided to save him anyways. But ultimately, it took them a while to find Ringo in a spot where they could just grab him.
Well, Ringo found himself on the back of some critter that keeps running around all over, and every time they kept looking for him, they would be going in the opposite direction.
And he was also screaming at the top of his lungs. Right. Which
don't they sound like it? It looks like they do a charging. It's like they make the music that's like they're charging it out.
Well. What happens is that there's a creature that looks like it's some kind of a tribal Indian, and it is chasing the creature that has Ringo on top of it, and it looks like there's some kind of powwow with other Indians that they're going to pounce on him. So I guess they find a button that sends out an American cavalry.
Yep.
Charge. I thought that was funny, even though nowadays, because of the history between the U.S. cavalry and the Indians themselves, I'm not sure in this day and age how well that would hold up.
Yeah, no, it's
probably not.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit cringe.
Yeah,
a little bit. But anytime they depict Indians in animations from early on, it's a little bit cringe.
Yeah, there is the element of kind of ingrained racism, but there's also just the fact that the actual history, the relationship between America and it was the American side was not the villain, the heroic side that we
I remember a book that I used to have, which was just a book filled with quotations, and it was an old book, but I love the title on it. Who was the savage? And to me, I believe that we were. I believe that full on that we Americans were the savage ones to the Indians.
Oh yeah.
But
No doubt.
that being said, moving forward, we don't really want to dwell on that.
There are some weird
they did grab Ringo and then move on. But,
well, and I think wasn't it? I think Tammy mentioned earlier. This is the sequence where you have that weird creature with the vacuum nose that's going around eating everything.
Yes,
and then ultimately,
like vacuuming everything up.
And then ultimately, it ends up running out of prey and ends up sucking itself up.
Which. Then they're in a world of white, and that's about when we meet Jeremy Boob.
Yes,
I believe it was Jeremy Hillary Boob.
That was one of my dad's favorite songs. Was Nowhere Man. My dad was a big.
Yeah, I like that song.
I always have that one and Fool on the Hill. I always put those two together, but they're similar in a lot of ways. But hey, it introduces a friend.
Yep.
So I guess that's part of it, right?
Yep. And it's actually because of Ringo that they take this creature along with them, and he ultimately it becomes a kind of a freedom fighter of theirs against the Blue Meanie. Later on,
he knows everything.
But that is neither here nor now. But right now, there is a moment where I guess a piece of the submarine breaks down.
Actually, I should mention, as far as like trippy animations and whatever, I believe they refer to Professor Boob. I believe they refer to him as a sophist, or maybe he refers to himself that way. It definitely is all about that sort of cerebral nonsense, might be the best way to put it. And I'm reminded of the sophist neighbor in the Tatami Galaxy. He was a little bit of a different character, but it's a similar concept. This character that's like comes off as very erudite and learned, and they're full of shit. You know?
Yeah.
But it was interesting.
I'm gonna try to speed this up a little bit.
Well, there's a lot of nothing and weird vignettes that go on in this central part that takes them from there to Pepperland, so it can get easy to get lost in the weeds here.
Yeah. Basically, what happens is there's a machine part that breaks down. They get the Beatles and the Nowhere Man get separated from the sub, which they end up going on their own, at least until they get into the land of Pepperland. But in order to get through there, I guess they have to go through the foothills of the headlands,
Right.
which is evidently these hills of heads with like whatever is happening inside the brains.
And this was the part where they played Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do believe that's when they did.
Yeah.
Which
And they
was
had a
an
really
awesome
weird-
moment.
They had a weird sort of like kind of rough-hewn watercolor almost look to the art in this section. It was really weird.
Yeah, when we were listening to the documentary of the making of, they said that the art style was a little bit Picassoan and Schlieben. I don't know who the other one was, but those are the two artists that seem to come up. But that being said, they finally did get to Pepperland itself, and they also ended up getting back together with the Yellow Submarine on top of the pyramid. But they ended up having to sneak into the land because the blue meanies were like everywhere.
Well, they revived Lord Mayor. I believe they did hummed a few bars, and that was enough to
wake him.
They had to remove the apples, basically, is the main thing, and got him uncovered and able to do.
Yeah, because
I was going to say they also found out that music was key to reviving them. Apparently,
right. And one of the things that they ended up going and doing was evidently they had to sneak into this pavilion that had the music instruments and the uniforms of the original Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club band, because evidently they bear a striking resemblance to them. So they donned their uniforms and they took their instruments. And I thought the moment where they were, and this was before they got to Pepperland. There was a moment where they were popping their heads through different holes.
Yeah, basically they had to get to the green or something like that. And
Sea of Green or
Sea of
something.
Green. Yeah, because that's from the song, the Sea of Green. And then they had to try various holes, and that was where the professor gets abducted by the blue meanies, but that also leads them to the hole that leads them to the Sea of Green and then to Pepperland. There.
And that's also where we got one of our dad joke level quips that we get throughout the movie, where Ringo takes one of them and folds it up into a little bitty piece and sticks it in his pocket. I've got a hole in me pocket.
Which it comes in handy later from when they're going to save the original band. But spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen. But anyways, they get the instruments, get the don the uniforms, and they think that they are out of Dodge, but it's apparent that one of the clowns robotic clowns wakes up, sees them, and sounds the alarm.
That is an annoying alarm.
Oh God, yeah, it was. But evidently this alerts the Blue Meanies, and now they are chasing them in suit. But they do get away, and they do find themselves among an area in which they think that they can actually start singing and playing those instruments. So, I guess a sort of battle ensues of words, where they use words against the blue meanies and that flying fist.
Well, it turns out that John seemingly has basically about the same power as Levy McGarden from Fairy Tale, basically using words as weapons. Of course, in this case, it's not so much weapons as like a physical manifestation that happens to hurt the meanies, but or at least confuse them.
There are a couple of songs that are sung during this whole endeavor, and one of them,
I believe they do.
They start with Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yep. And then with a little help from my friends, I was a little disappointed that they strolled away from that one so quickly. But
all you need is love, which is kind of used against the flying fist creature.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the only reason why they did the with a little help from my friends so quick behind is because that's how it is on the album, and they were having a hard time separating the two because they follow so closely to one another. Oh, and When I'm 64 is also from that same album.
Okay. Yeah, I will say I was a little late coming to the Beatles in my life. Like in my life was one I heard much later. I remember going to youth events in high school where one of the people leading the event was a Beatles fanatic. And that was my introduction to most of their music. But there were a couple that I knew growing up, and with a little help from my friends was one of the first ones.
Oh.
So it's always been very nostalgic for me.
And see, for me, my father loved the Beatles. And so I was exposed when I was at a very young age to Revolver, Help, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Magical Mystery Tour, and what was it? Gosh, give my regards to Broad Street soundtracks from Jump.
See, my dad was a big Beatles fan also, and he actually had a bunch of it on reel to reel, and like playing it over his system. And I know one of his favorite songs was Nowhere Man. Yeah. But yeah, he was a very big Beatles fan.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
My dad was, but for some reason, it just wasn't front and center for us. Like, I mean, and it's there was a famous rivalry between the Beatles and the Beach Boys. And for me, I mean, I grew up on the Beach Boys. They were front and center. That was one of the groups I listened to over and over again. And it's just kind of weird how that played out, I guess.
My father was briefly into the Beach Boys. Like when he got to meet them and work for them briefly, where he was doing the piano and stuff like that. He got into them again for a brief moment, and so that was introduced. But my father had a very brief rotation of stuff. It was all that Elvis's Hawaii album, Queen's like 1970 something concert, and the Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome soundtrack. Those are basically what I heard whenever I was in the car with him. Was one of those.
Seeing,
See,
I
growing
had
up,
quite a mixture because my mom was big time Elvis and a radio station in town that played all the 50s, 60s music and all that. So basically, except for when I was beat by my great grandparents and I could play with the radio and listen to different stuff, all I was exposed to was that. And until I met my father, I didn't even meet him until I was 12. When I met my dad, then then it was Beatles and Styx and Queen and Meatloaf and, all this totally different music, where I had been around my mom. And of course, the 50, 60 station played Beach Boys. They played Buddy Holly, Tommy James, and but if you were in the car with mom, it was always Elvis,
my mom was John Denver.
That was a big one for us too.
And my dad was Foghat, Chicago, and Creedence Clearwater.
Yeah, my dad was all about Chicago.
My dad had every single volume of the Chicago band on tape. So that was a rotational listen when I borrowed.
Yeah. See, my mother had such a rotation of music that she liked. It would have been hard to nail it down. My father, however, listened to the same things over and over again. So it was really easy. I say the only thing I could say that was a very regular album over and over again that my mother used to play for a while was the Ace of Base, the Sign album, which for some reason she did get stuck on that for a while.
I would have to say that my dad is a better music lover now than he was when I was growing up, because he had his specifics. The Three Dog Night was another one for
one of the
him.
things I remember the most is, like I said, didn't meet my father until I was 12. Well, I'm Bohemian. I get that from my mom. And he thought it was real funny the first time he introduced me to Queen. Here, you're Bohemian. Phew, put Bohemian Rhapsody in,
Right.
So, but yeah, I definitely did get my share of Beatles music, though, learning about the Beatles from my dad. So.
Alrighty, so ultimately, what happens is, and this is okay. So they finally get to the area in which they think that they can do all the singing, and we mentioned the three songs that they pretty much sing.
Pull out a lot of instruments considering what they did do. Of course, they had to break into the place where the meanies took all the instruments to steal them back, and apparently have all bags of holding with them as they're pulling out all these different instruments as they're doing their music performance.
It reminds me a little bit because they're clearly playing what looks like a horn 4-piece band. But you can clearly hear things like guitar and drums and things like that. And I'm reminded of one of my favorite moments in the Andy Griffith show where Andy's talking to Briscoe Darling, and he's like, "You don't believe I can get banjo sounds out of this here jug?" It's like, you may be a great musician, but I don't think there's a pair of lips around that versatile. I may have misquoted slightly, but it's like,
yeah. Of course, whenever I think of banjos, I think of the dueling banjos from Deliverance.
Right.
So,
well, everybody hears dueling banjos when they enter the country.
But in any case, So ultimately, the "All You Need Is Love" song defeats the fist,
Mm-hmm.
the flying fist or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course you've got the blue meanie leader who is still cussing up a storm about attacking the people of Pepperland and trying to get his people to stop going the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because evidently he's lost control and he still has hate against the Pepperland, and it's Jeremy who ends up being kind of the helper here because evidently Jeremy gets tied up by one of the blue meanies, and I believe it's Ringo again who comes across him and basically cuts him down and tells him to go up against the blue meanie in some fashion, and he accidentally drops one of those big large apples on the dude's head and continues onward and runs into the blue meanie leader, and he basically tries the same thing that with words,
Mm-hmm.
because evidently the Nowhere Man is kind of a wizard, because evidently his words turn things into reality. So when he talks about a rose, a rose begins to form and grow on the blue meanie leader's nose.
A rose on his nose. Yes.
And
Yes. We should
ultimately
mention, we should mention that he always talks in rhyme.
yes, he does. He is a riddler
Mm-hmm.
of sorts. So he begins to grow more roses on the blue meanie. In fact, blooms a lot of them on him. So embarrasses the hell out of the blue meanie for a little bit. In fact, it kind of estranges him from his people. But evidently his number one is still hanging around him, even though he keeps saying the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And what do y'all think about the fact that he kind of turns around and kind of becomes a nice creature?
Well, I mean, predictable ending for this type of film.
Right.
If there's anything that you could be said by predictable, well, actually, that's not necessarily true. I would say that films like this in and of themselves are predictable by nature because they're so off the wall as far as in the middle and on the edges that the story has to be predictable in order to really land. Because if you're not able to follow along in that point in time, you're not going to be able to at all if it's just all chaos and unpredictable endings and so on. So I should say it's a very predictable ending, but it's the ending we need.
Well, given that the movie seems to be leading up to essentially the thematic point that love and music are the answer and the cure, and you need to have them, and that's kind of.
Like I say, I feel like that was an easy thing to even pull from the very beginning. So, but like I say, I'm not saying that as a bad thing. Like I say, I don't think a movie like this, if they had made a movie like this with a lot of twists and turns with the plot, with all the weird stuff going on, it would be totally lost on most people.
And this movie was very much a product of its time. Like, this was right out in the middle of the love and peace hippie era, and the movie really feels like it's out of that time.
Well, and it's weird is that a lot of people think of the, as I say, the 60s for that stuff, but really the era that most people think of as the 60s is the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, this is late 60s.
Yeah.
So maybe not middle, but like one of the early stages of it.
Yeah, because the hippie movement started in the late 60s and wrapped up in the mid 70s. So, at which, was replaced with just a bunch of despair and stuff like that. So, it was not replaced by the best of things, but hey.
Yeah, because the early 60s was all about love, man. Love. It was the flower power movement.
Well, like he was saying, more the late 60s.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I say, most of the early to mid 60s was much like the 50s. People with lots of like suits, going to work, nuclear family, that whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
Very clamped down, anti-communist movement.
Business. Business. It's the American way.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But in any case, we have pretty much gotten to the ending in a bumbling kind of way, but
well, it matches the movie.
Yeah.
But it pretty much basically ends with the Blue Meanies running away, leaving their leader in charge, all alone and against a reasonable, peaceful. Why don't you come join us?
Come join us.
You gonna come join us? And he decides to, and they have a last song that is sung. Now there was one song that I didn't entirely recognize that was sung somewhere on their journey to Pepperland. That I didn't. It was after Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, but that I didn't mention, but because I didn't remember the name of it or whatnot, but other than that, this is pretty much the movie. I mean, you have an epic battle between the protagonists and the people, and when the power of song brings the people to life. Just like in the Chronicles of Narnia, the Breath of Aslan was the way to bring the characters to life, And in Sleeping Beauty, the way to break break that curse was in order to the kiss of true love. I mean, these are fairly similar situations where people were frozen in time. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the Blue Meanies did to the people of Pepperland. They basically froze them in time.
Mm-hmm.
So. And music brought them to life, and everything was back to where everyone was doing the gravy trains. So,
Mhm.
that being said, what do y'all think about production overall? Tammy, we haven't heard from you in a while. What did you think about production overall?
Um, I guess I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it was definitely unique. I mean, all the different characters that they came up with and everything. Um, it's not your what you would say your normal looking anime. So
When you're talking anime, that anime is normally referring to a Japanese form
okay,
of anime.
animation.
Yeah,
There we go.
yeah,
Sorry,
So
needed to clarify that.
right.
I wasn't thinking Japanese. I was thinking okay, but whatever.
I know what you were thinking, but the way you were terminologying it.
Okay,
So,
but anyways, yes, the animation is definitely very unique in it, um, and so is the storyline. To go get the Beatles and bring them to this Pepperland,
Yep.
this imaginary or make believe place or whatever, so that they
mhm.
can bring the music back to bring the people back. And yeah, it was, I guess, a fitting ending that the good guys won basically, and now there's no more bad guys. They
Yep.
converted them over because of the music. So yeah, it's got a nice little, you know,
Morality story.
yeah.
Right.
So the only thing I will have to say is I understand what you guys were saying about the Indians being in it and the cavalry and all that. You know, a lot of times I wish that people were not the way they are nowadays, because I'm sure when this was made, nothing bad was thought of by putting the
Oh well,
Indians and the
yeah.
cavalry. But people nowadays gotta like, as you guys were saying, people nowadays will probably think differently about it, and it's like, why should you think differently about it? It wasn't meant for that. That was not the intent. I guess I get annoyed with that kind of stuff, because it's like that. Even with other movies
It
we've
wasn't
talked
meant to
about,
be racist, but it is.
and we've
I
talked
mean,
about other movies too, that think people would think about it nowadays, and I just wish people would leave things alone and just leave them how they were, and not read things into them the way they do
Well, you
and
will
pick them
read
apart.
things into anytime you're looking at anything at all critically, or discussing it beat by beat. You will read part of your own
yeah.
experience into it. That's part of the thing.
I mean,
Um,
I
look
get
at
what you're saying, but
It's
people nowadays read too
yeah,
much negative stuff into things that were not meant to be negative.
yeah, yeah. This is true. Some people
yeah.
take it way too far.
I think that people don't necessarily. I mean, there are people who do not understand about the product of their time, but at the same time, it's good to be able to say, "Is like, look, yeah, this doesn't hold up today," but, and that's a good thing to know, because not everybody can look at this and say that or understand that. And it's just like, for instance, a good example, Disney does a good job of
Yeah.
that by putting a disclaimer in front of things like the crows in Dumbo. I mean, you look at that now and you know that that's just a
Well,
um,
a good example along those lines, and getting back to the idea of the Native Americans or whatever. Growing up, one of my favorite movies was Peter Pan.
oh,
I loved Peter Pan. And I genuinely do find those scenes cringe nowadays.
Yeah.
It's the way my outlook has changed over the years. And it's not me trying to apply society's. My outlook has changed. And I find those scenes cringe. When I was a kid, I didn't think anything of it. You know? That's just kind of how that is. You know, it's like I still to this day, Following the Leader is such a catchy song, and I will hum that along all the.
Well, I mean,
Tammy, I feel the same way as you, but having discussed films that and knowing how people are and how the cancel culture is and whatnot and how the modern day society looks at things, I've kind of gotten my own feelings of cringe towards some of the things that the modern day world would take and be like, I don't want to see that shit, you know.
I guess it's just I so far every time I haven't found every time you guys say, you know, this wouldn't have held up or this that, I guess I'm just think a lot differently. I have not found anything yet that bothers me or anything from anything's, you know, when you said that, it is just, you know, and it's, I guess I just don't get offended as easily as maybe other people do.
And again, it's about perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, for instance, a good example. I mean, slavery is wrong. I think that's a pretty easy thing to say, right? I don't think anybody would say, yeah, no, slavery was a good thing. Well, I mean, there are some people trying to put that in the history books now. But, I mean, if you saw a movie that was talking about how good slavery was and how awesome it is, you wouldn't say, well, because it's back then, that means that slavery is a good thing because it was said that in the movie. No, you're not going to say that. You'll look at that and say, yes, slavery is still wrong. Therefore, it doesn't hold up when it says that slavery is wrong. I mean, right. Those people were still racist in their portrayal of that. There's nothing wrong in saying that, yeah, it was. Were they ignorant to the fact of the time? Yes. And same thing with the other. Back then, it was considered progressive to show people who were, you know, Native Americans because it was considered a part of the environmental movement, because the American Indian was considered, to use that term, was considered, you know, that whole like one with the environment.
And even so, some of those Native Americans were played by white actors.
Yes.
Yeah.
a lot.
And a lot of us could see, yeah.
Which that is a huge factor in the whole this is racist factor.
Yeah.
You know.
And again, those things were wrong, and there's no problem in pointing it out. And you can still watch the film. You can still understand that, yes, the film had some good writing and had some fun art. But to know that it's like, yeah, this doesn't hold up.
I know one of the most controversial ones that Disney put out is Song of the South.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is why it will probably never fully be released.
Right.
And it's one of my favorite movies because my great grandma took me to it, and my great grandma was not racist. She never thought that way or nothing, and my mother was, but my great grandma wasn't. And I still enjoy the movie. And I don't think about it as that there was slavery at that time and that there was racism at that time. I don't think about any of them things at all when I watch the movie because I look at all the good and the fun stuff in the movie and remember my great grandma taking me to it, you know.
Right.
I do remember my mother finding out that my great grandmother took me to it, and that was not a good thing.
Well, and everything is personal. Like everything is
Yeah.
your own experience. Like, and there are different things that have been canceled, not just, racist portrayals or whatever. A good example over the weekend, I revisited a movie that I saw in theaters because at the time I was like, oh, I love this cast. This is the best possible. I'm going to go see this. And that was Grant Heslov's The Men Who Stare at Goats. I haven't seen that in years. And it stars one Kevin Spacey. And going back and revisiting his movies is always dicey for me now because of the things that went down. Now, of course, in this movie, he plays a complete douchebag, a complete tool, one of his worst characters ever. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Didn't affect my viewing at all.
I mean, and again, there's also, because that's another factor of separating art from artists. I mean, look at say some of the great films by, gosh, what's his name? The guy who did Rosemary's Baby.
Polanski.
Yeah, I mean, you don't watch that, and the first thing, most people don't watch Polanski film is like, man, I really do support child abuse and sexual, misconduct with children.
We just recently covered Roman Polanski's film Repulsion not too long ago.
I still need to see that.
A good film. But like I said, but most people don't look at that way. That's not what they say usually. But is that a part of it? Yes. Should it be acknowledged? Yes. I think that's really more, is just to know that yes, these things are wrong because it's there. It's like if somebody were to say, I watched, Triumph of the Will, and I don't see what's wrong with that movie. I think it's a perfectly great movie. Triumph of the Will. Like, I watched Triumph of the Will.
That's a tricky one.
And, I thought that was a perfectly great movie about the German people. I don't really see what the problem is. I think all those haters must be having a problem. I liked it. I was like,
well, you weren't in a concentration camp at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Since I wasn't, I guess that means that I can like the film, and the others.
Your family members weren't being gassed out of existence.
And see, this is a good example of like to your point, Tammy. I think the while I don't excuse the scene that we're talking about in this movie, it's understandable given the Triumph of the Will was straight up propaganda. There are no question. It was funded by the Third Reich. It because Leni Riefenstahl had so much support, she was able to do amazing things that had never been done before in a movie.
Yeah.
And she actually progressed cinematography with that movie, but it's a propaganda piece for the Nazi Party.
But it was a product of its time, reflecting the beliefs of the people of its time and the area it was. So in a way, you could justify it in the same way.
Another perfect example is I've got a German version of the story of the Titanic, and the reason why it was a film that was not very well thought of is there are actual Nazis that play as actors in the film, and you can see their Nazi paraphernalia on their armband while they're acting. So
that's.
I mean, I do get what you guys are saying and everything. I guess that a lot of times I just don't see things that way. I just, because this was denomination, and there were so many different things in it. To me, it was like, oh, okay, well, there's that, and there's that. It didn't seem off for it to be in there, you know.
Normally, I wouldn't point that. Normally, I wouldn't point that out, but there are things that make me cringe a little bit.
Really?
Being around these guys, they made me cringe a little bit at some of these things. It's like, you guys are somewhat influencing me.
Well,
It's your guys' fault. No.
Yay!
Well, you see, and that's a good example, Tammy. I mean, Bunny the Killer thing makes you cringe a little bit.
Oh.
And but again, that's the thing is there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, this doesn't hold up or this is there, and there's nothing wrong with saying you can still like a film just because it has some inappropriate things in it. But knowing that they are there shows that you have that understanding, and I think that's a positive thing in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
I
yeah,
think-
now that I understand the things that people don't like about Song of the South, I understand, now that I'm older and stuff, of course, I understand all of that. But when I was a child and I went and saw it with my great grandma, I didn't think anything of that, and it took, it took a long time before I realized why people didn't like that, why it was a controversy on that movie, and
it had to be described to you.
Yeah.
See, unfortunately, there have been a lot of people who have enough time on their hands to sit and think about these kinds of things.
Well, or the people who actually do feel like they're affected by the movie finally get the chance to speak up about it.
Well, I didn't even understand, because when I was a kid and my mother totally reamed my great grandma for taking me to the movie, I had no idea why.
Mhm.
I didn't understand it at all.
Well,
my mom was very racist.
I mean, we were taught in school when I was in elementary school. We were taught "Zippity Doo Dah" as a song. It's a fun song there.
It was a well-known song. Disney didn't back away from that for a while.
Hey, that was the first time I'd actually ever seen the Bluebird of Happiness.
I mean the ride. What was it? Splash Mountain didn't close until like very recently, and that was all based off of the Song of the South.
Yeah,
but, it's about understanding. I mean, no kid's gonna go through research Song of the South, understand what it's about, where the tales came from, why it was a problem. I mean, no 5-year-old's gonna do that. Well, okay, maybe if you're like Sheldon, young Sheldon, you might do that. But but usually most kids ain't gonna do that.
Oh, come on! It was just Meemaw saying it.
So but this particular though, it's a fairly harmless thing. It's just something that's from the time, and I think it's interesting when you see something like that. It's like, oh, that's interesting. Mark of the time, because the person that they put in there wasn't probably even. There's probably more for a progressive reason than a regressive reason. Again, what's progressive at one point is not looked like that. Like, for instance, at the time, that might have actually, in 1968, as a more conservative individual, Dave, you might have been offended by the Native American thing, saying that's a hippie thing. How dare they, have that in there? Because, again, that was...
I don't know, the portrayal in this did seem closer to your typical John Wayne movie than, anything else.
But that's the idea, is that it's a very different... it's different people, different... I mean, progressive movies, the Oscars, good example.
Yeah.
A lot of these really progressive movies are very much not progressive movies.
Still don't know how Green Book won when it did.
But that's the thing. It's all in the eye of the beholder. And 20 years from now, movies that we think are progressive and forward-leaning now will probably be considered extremely offensive and terrible, and we just can't see it yet.
And we could I can think of some movies where we could revisit this exact topic, but it probably is long.
Yeah, I think we've gone a little bit long for the small mention of the one American Indian scene that lasted like 5 seconds in the film.
I do want to mention an interesting thing about the production. According to IMDb, and again, Dave, if you guys watch some of the background, maybe you saw some of this, I don't know. But IMDb says, in summer 1967, director George Dunning brought German artist Heinz Edelman to London to work as production designer. The script wasn't ready, and Edelman wasn't given a specific assignment. After 2 months of inactivity, he decided to quit. He vented his frustrations by drawing a series of villainous characters which ultimately became the Blue Meanies, the Apple Bonkers, and the Glove. Dunning loved the sketches and made Edelman the guiding force to the production. So it's like he basically drew them as sort of an FU because he had nothing to do.
Yeah, I almost wish
that's
that
kind of fun.
I almost wish Brittany was in here for this because the animation itself was very well done, and I mean, it was very smooth. It was very cool how they
supposedly they took strides to create some things that had never been done before in animation. So it would be nice to know like what kinds of things were done that have never been done since. Because it can only be attributed to Heinz Edelman, you know. And supposedly he did quite a few illustrations for covers and stuff. And I guess the last one he did was in the 70s.
This says here that Dunning, the director, was a specialist in animation using painted glass. And so that was probably what they used in this does say that was used for the Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds sequence.
And it looks like some of it was actually used for the Eleanor Rigby
that's
section too.
Yeah.
A lot of that, almost not kaleidoscope, even though kaleidoscope eyes is reflective of it. But the construction paper almost look that you see in future animations. I do agree that maybe this did influence the soon after animations that we see in Monty Python and others in British animation going forward. I think that maybe I was looking at that wrong while I was making the statement. Maybe it was less that this is a product of its time around it, but maybe it created a lot of the products that came after in that British animation.
I also, Dave, I mentioned this earlier, I think, and I found the blurb here on IMDb, and I just find this amusing. Art director Heinz Edelman hated Disney Studios, so he expressly designed most of the Blue Meanies with Mouseketeer masks.
Well, see, there you go. You got to prove him right there.
Well, and we know the music was basically done by the Beatles, so we don't really need to talk anymore on that. So let's go into favorite scenes and our favorite characters. Let's start with you, Brandon.
Let's see. Favorite scene. I actually like the whole bit where they're in the weird Beatles mansion, going back and forth, meeting the different Beatles in the weird long hallway and doing that stuff. I thought that was fun. Let's see. Favorite character. Probably the Nowhere Man himself. I think that was a fun character. Favorite. And that's it. There you go. And if I was really to put out something else musically, I would say when they moved into the real world and played Eleanor Rigby, I thought that was also really cool.
Alrighty, let's go over to you, Tammy.
Okay. Well, I guess my favorite character is Jeremy.
Oh, Jeremy Boob?
Yeah. My favorite character that's not a character though is the sub.
Okay.
Hey.
And
the sub is a character in a way.
Yeah.
My favorite scene. That's kind of hard. There's a bunch of things that are neat in it. So
How about the sucking monster?
No. Um, I think when they start playing the music and everybody basically comes back to life and everybody's like joining in and you know the and everything, and I think that's just it was kind of neat, they start singing and playing the music and all of a sudden everybody's comes back.
I do like that part.
And I like when the blue meanie starts having flowers all over him, and then he changes his tune.
Rosebuds.
Yeah, that's right there, with listen to the flower people from.
Listen to what the flower people.
I never promised you a rose garden.
Oh, I didn't. I don't think any of us actually said that, but yeah, that is a one thing I thought was cool about this was the fact that it was based off of this guy's reflections after listening to the song Yellow Submarine, which I do think that is a cool backstory.
Yep.
Okay.
A few minutes.
Okay. What about you, Jake?
Favorite character is the cat.
Oh, the cat that the police had.
Well, no.
Here,
I mean, it was awesome, but I think I don't know that I have a clear favorite. I was actually mildly annoyed by the Nowhere Man, but not terribly. I'm tempted to go with. I'm tempted to say that it's kind of a tie between Ringo John and the main Blue Meanie, honestly. I don't know what it was about the Blue Meanie, but there were times where he reminded me a little bit of the Joker, and I don't know, that just amused me. I don't really know why. Favorite scene is probably the Eleanor Rigby sequence. I just thought it was really well done.
And there were cats. There were cats
and there were
in the Eleanor Rigby section.
Right. But there were also some fun little wordplay moments, little funny moments. And actually, okay, this was what we were doing. It wasn't a button. It was Ringo's like, hey, I wonder what'll happen if I pull this lever. And old Fred's like, oh no, you mustn't do that now. Oh no, this was a different part. Because that was old Fred. Sorry. But anyway, he's like, can't help it. I'm a born Liverpooler. I don't know. I just thought that some of those little puns and just bad jokes just kind of amused me. It's blue glass. Must be from Kentucky. Things like that. Just like really bad jokes. Just kind of amused me. But the
and they didn't even say it deadpan.
What's that?
They didn't even say these jokes deadpan like. It was just. It was just. Well, to me, every time they joked, it was kind of like they were just saying it, not.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean that is deadpan, isn't it? But yeah, I was just trying to think of. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I would say this, other than the Eleanor Rigby, it would be this moment where Fred's like, "Now, whatever you do, don't touch that button." Which button? That button. This button pushes the button. Ah, that was the panic button. I just like that. Yeah, there you go.
I'm just reminded of what it says on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Don't panic.
Don't panic.
Yes.
I keep thinking of the Ren and Stimpy, space one where they were talking about having Ren press the button and he was told not to press it, and the announcer kept going, "The red shiny button, the red candy-like button,"
Right.
I haven't seen that show in forever. But in any case, as far as favorite characters go, I think I do like the Nowhere Man. I didn't find him as annoying as you did, Jake. In fact, his voice kind of reminded me of like Billy Boyd. I don't know if you know who that was, but he was a character actor that oftentimes he was a dwarf.
He was one of the. Oh boy, I know this name. Wasn't he one of the hobbits? I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
No, but he was one of the dwarfs in the canon version of Snow White.
He was. Billy Boyd was one of the hobbits. He was he Merry or Pippin? I don't remember.
There was an earlier actor. His name was Billy, and might be thinking about a different person.
Maybe. Pippin. Yeah.
Let's see if I can figure out who I'm actually talking about.
There are a couple of Billy Boyds apparently on IMDb. Let's see here.
Billy.
Yeah, there's a couple different ones.
Billy Bud.
Okay. I'll know specifically if I bring up Snow White. Snow White. Let's see. From 1987. Oh, Billy Barty. That's who it was. Billy Barty. He reminds me of the voice of Billy Barty. Barty for some reason, but I know that it's probably not him. In fact, it isn't him because they had different voice actors or whatnot. But it sounded to me like.
Oh wow! So Dave, this is really crazy for your initial slip of the tongue. Billy Boyd, the actor I was thinking of, was born the same year that this movie came out. And he was born about halfway between the release in Ireland and the release in Sweden. So that's kind of crazy.
Interesting.
Okay.
To say the least.
Right.
I'm gonna have to say my one of my favorite scenes is the When I'm 64. Moment when their beards turn really long and Octopussy almost Lovecraftian.
I think Ringo's in particular.
And for some reason, I get a kick out of Frankenstein and King Kong showing up.
Yeah.
But I do like the moment that Tammy likes a lot. When they start to sing and I also like when they sing "All You Need Is Love" and use love against the flag.
Right.
So, that being said, did anyone else have anything else to add? Alrighty. Well, hopefully you ladies and gentlemen have enjoyed our discussion on the Yellow Submarine. If you haven't even heard of this movie, go out and see it. It's definitely still cheap enough that you can buy it.
And luckily, you can find it on the Internet Archive.
It is
Yep.
a unique animation style. If you go see it, come back. Let us know what you thought of our discussion, what you thought of the movie, and I'm sure one of us will be able to answer you back. And I'm sure. Do we have any more movies that will be going on this month, or is this the last one?
Oh, there's one more birthday to go.
Oh,
And
what is your last choice of the month?
I'm going to be treating y'all with an exciting documentary about atomic weapons called The Atomic Cafe. But as a nice little palate cleanser to start with, we'll be covering a trailer, a spoof trailer, one of the original Star Wars spoofs called Hardware Wars, which is I could never find a good time to throw that one on since it's like 5 minutes long. So I thought, you know what? Let's just do that one on top of this because nuclear proliferation is definitely a bit of a serious topic. So maybe that would be a good one to throw on in front. And Hardware Wars is on Tubi, and I believe the Atomic Cafe is also on Tubi. Let me make sure. Actually, no, it's on Hoopla, but both of them are free. So there we go. Well, I hope to see you all then next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Oh, and if y'all want to join us on our channel, we're going to be covering Over the Garden Wall this Wednesday. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
All right.
Okay. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we will all say good night to you. So, good night.
Good night.
Good night.